Hi, I'm Derek Williams, and I did my research project on globalization of KFC in China. I did this research so I could compare KFC's globalization to George Ritzer's theory of globalization. He describes this theory in the book Globalization Nothing To, and in his book, Ritzer describes a nothing to something and global to global continuum as shown here behind me. And just so everyone is on the same page, local means to be strongly influenced by local culture and local people, while globalized items tend to be heavily influenced by large global forces. Whereas on the something to nothing end, some things are one-of-a-kind unique items that may be only found in one part of the world, and nothings are culturally devoid and generally not unique. Based on this continuum, Ritzer says that as items and companies globalize, they tend to shift from the global and something end of the spectrum to the global and nothing end of the spectrum. So they shift here to here. After my research, I found that Ritzer's theory was not completely right in regards to the globalization of KFC in China. I found the company as a whole to fall somewhere in the middle of the graph right here. I came to this conclusion after researching four main components of KFC. These components were KFC's business model, the size and staffing of each individual restaurant, the menu items of each restaurant, and the supply networks KFC created in China. I would like to start out first by talking about KFC's business model. In the United States, many fast food restaurants are highly franchised, and according to the article Franchising in China, Legal Challenges When First Entering the Chinese Market, the researchers found that 88% of the restaurants in the United States are franchised. However, when KFC entered the Chinese market, this was not the case, and many people were unfamiliar with the franchising business model. Because of this, the company struggled to find franchisees to open restaurants. To deal with this situation, the company began to open a large amount of corporate-owned restaurants. And this is important to this continuum because KFC China owns such a large proportion of the restaurants in China, they had a strong influence of what happened at each of those restaurants, such as items like decor. Whereas in the whereas in the United States, KFCs are more global because there are more franchisees, and these franchisees have an influence of what happens in the restaurants. And generally, they live in the area where the restaurants are located, so they know the local needs of the customer, and they can help their business adapt to those needs. Whereas KFC China is more global because the corporate leaders aren't in each location knowing what each local customer wants. And so I'm going to place this circle up here for business model of KFC China because I think that is more of globalized entity. Moving on to the next component I researched, which was the size and staffing of each restaurant. In China, KFC noticed a large increase in the amount of dine-in customers when compared to the United States restaurants. In response, KFC doubled the size of their restaurants in China and staffed more people. One of the additional jobs added was a hostess. The hostess at each restaurant taught people English songs and coordinated local games for children. Looking at KFC completely, I believe this component falls exactly in the middle of the continuum due to the changes KFC made to accommodate the local trends of the Chinese customer. In the United States, the restaurants between China and the United States are completely different in regards to size and staffing. So I believe that those two wash out on the something and nothing end of the continuum, and it would fall right here. And besides the staffing, agrees with one of Ritzer's ideas called cultural hybridization. Um, Ritzer defines cultural hybridization as a mixture of cultural elements from different areas and different parts of the world. And in this case, KFC influenced the Chinese consumer by introducing fast food in a friendly environment like we have in the United States. And the consumer responded to this by patronizing KFC, but in contrast to the American customers, they stayed inside the restaurant longer to enjoy the atmosphere and to enjoy their food. The next component to be discussed is one that I found to highly contradict Ritzer, and that is menu items available in each restaurant. According to the article, a study of the food crisis and national and global challenges of fast food in China, the researchers mentioned that out of all the Western fast food chains in China, KFC has gone the farthest to modify their menu to meet the taste of Chinese customers. Although original recipe chicken is still on the menu at all the restaurants in China, Chinese KFCs offer a wide variety of food that is not available in the United States. Some unique examples I found of this were lotus roots, bamboo shoots, egg tarts, and soy milk drinks. The researchers also found that Chinese KFC introduced 50 new menu items each year, and often a lot of these menu items are temporary, but this is a huge difference from the 2 menu items introduced each year in the United States. So I believe these menu item additions help KFC China move it towards something, but what really convinced me that KFC's menu items are something rather than nothing is that KFC in China adapted to the local tastes of each of the cities in China. For example, some of the Chinese cities, the consumers there thought the chicken was too bland, so KFC came up with some spicier sauces and introduced them in these cities, so the customers would be more satisfied with the food. Whereas in other cities, some of the consumers thought the chicken was too spicy, and so KFC developed sweeter sauces and introduced those there. And so I believe that really isn't something, because in the United States, any KFC you go to, you pretty much have the same menu items and the same sauces, but in China, you can go to one KFC and have a really spicy chicken, but when you go to a different KFC in a different city there, you can end up with chicken that is really sweet. And I believe that is a something, and that's why I'm going to put menu items towards the something end of the spectrum. Moving on to the last